Normally, we perceive conflict as bad, right? As soon as conflict comes up, it's like, oh no. But actually, conflict is just the uprising of unmet needs. Your unmet needs, my unmet needs, uprising, and our unskillful navigation of those leads to us fighting, right? So the beauty about a moment of unmet needs arising is that there's an opportunity to meet those unmet needs.
Hello and welcome to Separate Bathrooms. We would like to acknowledge the Gadigal People of the Eora Nation that we are recording this podcast on today and give thanks to their elders, both past and present. My name is Daddo.
My name is Cameron Daddo.
Right.
Yeah, I thought you were quite serious then as I'm sitting here listening
It was my
to that.
newsreader voice. I just was practicing that.
Oh, we've got another voice. Do you do a morning radio voice?
Nope.
Do you do a mama voice? Yes.
Yes.
Do you do an angry wife voice?
Never.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that would sound like.
It starts with Cameron.
No, it starts with dude.
Dude, oh, you dude me.
Dude, what are you doing?
Don't like being duded. Do you dude your partner?
Bit of conflict.
Bit of conflict.
Bit of conflict.
We should dive into some conflict. In
we
fact,
should. What?
ling-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling.
Segue. Yes.
Today we have he's a lot of things. He's a heart coach. Heart coach?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I know.
A yoga teacher, transformational facilitator, based in WA, with a broad reach internationally through his conscious relationship communication, coaching and retreats.
He's supported individuals, couples and groups to regrow trust, connection and understanding in the face of conflict, complexity and change since 2008.
James Gill, also known as Fish. He's had it his whole life.
That's right.
I imagine. He's warm, he's compassionate, he's a terrific bloke. We cannot wait to meet him. He's outside the bathroom door, so let's bring him in. James Fish Gill. Welcome, James Gill, to the bathroom.
Thank you.
Can we call you Fish?
Yeah, I'd prefer if you did.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been called Fish since I was 6. So if you call me James, it's technically correct, but I might not respond.
You might not answer.
It's unfamiliar.
But does
your
everyone get
microphone.
called Fish in your family because you're all
No,
Gills?
surprisingly no.
It's only you.
Only me. Not even my dad.
Really?
Yeah, so it's only me.
Huh.
Which
Okay.
makes
Was
things less
this a nod
confusing.
to,
My
Waterworld?
My surname.
Oh, I know.
Oh, right.
But if your
okay.
dad didn't get it, did they look at you and think, oh, that's Kevin Costner?
Wow.
Waterworld, he had gills.
I haven't seen
Yeah, we
it.
got it. We got
He
it.
had gills.
I need to see it.
All right, so we got Fish. All right, so Fish.
Yeah.
In the work that you do, does it feel like it is a job or does it feel like it's more of a life calling for you?
Absolutely a life calling.
Yeah.
There's not a waking moment where I'm not fascinated by humanness and fascinated by relating and what opens us to one another and what closes us to one another. So although sometimes I talk about it as my work, I don't see myself ever retiring because really all I do all day, every day is have conversations with people about how to open when we naturally close.
Right.
So I'm going to continue to do that whether or not I'm paid for it until my dying breath, I think.
Okay.
So I guess you'd call that a calling.
Yeah, I think so.
This is what's going to happen for this next little bit of this chat. I'm going to ask you what some things mean because I love your Instagram.
And I use jargon.
Sometimes I go, I don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And so when I don't know what you're talking about, and maybe I'm thinking that Beattie, or one of our listeners, doesn't know what you're talking about, I'm going to ask a question for Beattie.
Great.
So when you say open or
Yeah.
close,
Yeah.
what are you referring to?
So those moments, it might be, for example, I got a message from my sister the other day saying, I love you, Fishy. They call me Fishy, my closest people. And so spontaneously in myself, I noticed this and I just want to respond by saying, I love you too.
Yeah.
Notice how reciprocal that is. So And if someone acknowledges me, or if someone calls me to say, oh my God, I just had the most amazing conversation with my partner, all these things are things that, I might say I naturally sort of my heart opens.
Okay.
I feel warm, I feel at ease, I feel joyful, I feel safe, I feel celebrating. And then there are those moments like someone sends me a message that criticizes me. Like, 3 years ago, I went out on a first date with someone, decided not to have a second date with them, and then they sent me a message saying, oh, you're just da-da-da-da-da-da. Mm. So in those moments, might be criticism, might be blame, might be disapproval, might be dismissal. I find my heart naturally closes.
Okay.
Like I just shut off. So the work that I do really is how to recommence the opening between us in moments where we naturally have both shut off. And conflict is like you shut off and I shut off to your shutting off.
Yep.
And you shut off to my shutting off to your shutting off.
There's a whole lot of shutting there, isn't it? Imagine if you put another vowel in there.
Well, that's kind of where it goes to. It's kind of where it goes to, it just becomes a shut fight.
Oh, like a shut up. We're having a shut down. Australian Crawl sung a song called something like that, Shut Down.
Yeah.
I'm feeling, so it's energetics you're talking about.
Well, it happens.
Kind of energy, swapping of energy.
It happens through communication.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting to notice the feeling of opening that happens naturally in us when someone does or says certain things, and the closing that happens in us when someone does and says certain things. And we can feel like we're at the mercy of other people's behaviour because if people do the right thing, I'm open. If people don't do the right thing, I'm closed.
Yes.
But I coach people in how to stay open and loving and compassionate despite what anyone does.
Yeah, that's great.
Yes. And it's really that, I guess, that first moment is actually just being conscious of what that actually feels like when you were saying to what does it feel like to be open? What does it feel like to be closed? Once we're conscious of that, then we can know the difference and what we want to strive for.
Yeah.
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 You are actually, I was just going to say the reason why we've got Fish on is because you are a therapist.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had someone come on who shared her story with her husband and how much you helped them, and that's how we first heard about you. So that's quite a calling card.
Yeah, actually, I work with a whole lot of therapists as clients, and I'm training a bunch of facilitators in this approach, and many of them are already therapists or counsellors or psychologists
and life coaches and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Were you like this as a little boy? Do you remember always being like this? Are your mum and dad the same way?
I think that's probably a very poignant place to start because I think, my parents separated when I was 3 and I lived mainly with my mum and my 2 sisters, and I would see Dad every second weekend. But being 3 and being in the midst of a separation, I naturally was compelled to make sure everyone was okay. And actually, I now see that I learnt to forego my own needs in that relationship in order to make sure everyone was okay. But I think I always identify as being kind of the peacekeeper. It's just that I didn't know the skills to create peace without just avoiding the upset. Like that culturally, that tends to be how we try and create peace. Is just, let's not talk about the upsetting things. Avoidance is really an unskillful commitment to peace. But
hang on. Avoidance is an
unskillful commitment to peace.
Okay.
Think about the times maybe in your relationship when you wanted to talk about something, but you didn't feel confident that you had the skills to talk about it in such a way as you would leave them really open, and you feared that would get shut down or hurt or take things how you didn't mean them. So you just postponed that conversation or watered it down. So, one of the important things to recognise is that out there in the world, a lot of people are avoiding conflict or avoiding contact, avoiding conversations. And we can take that so personally. Like, look how unwilling they are. But actually, if we start to recognise perhaps they feel unconfident, unsafe or unready,
Yeah.
such that avoidance is the natural pathway that they take because they simply don't want to make things terribly worse. I'm not saying it's a useful strategy.
Yep.
I'm just saying it's founded on the intention of not making things worse.
Yeah, right. It makes sense. I have a men's health group. We call it my men's team, and a lot of guys have spoken up about not wanting to make things worse. So just turning around to their partner and saying, "Yes, dear.
Yeah.
Yes, dear." Sort of thing. Yes, yes, or shutting up.
Yeah.
And then left seething, and then suddenly they wonder why. Well, they don't wonder why it's all blown up, but they just go, there was nowhere for me to go.
Yeah.
I had no one to speak to. So based on that kind of thing and what you're talking about, you in your job offer ways and certainly help people develop skills to open that up and trust themselves.
Yeah. I mean, consider that a relationship can't be fulfilling if we're not having our needs met. So, but in our attempts to get our needs met by expressing our pain at various times, it tends to go one of two ways. We either express our upset to our partner. We say, "Hey, I'm really disappointed or frustrated about this or sad about this, or I felt hurt when you said this or criticised."
Yeah.
And then they arc up because it's never what they wanted. So they start to get defensive or shut down or hurt, and then it escalates into a conflict. So that's one pathway that naturally happens everywhere in the world. Or because that's happened a bunch of times, if I've got an unmet need, I'll just not talk about it, like some of these men that you're talking about, Cam.
Yep.
So I just won't talk about it because I value the relative peace that I get through not. And then my needs go unmet that way as well. So most of us have learned one or both of those pathways. Right. Say my needs and someone explodes and then I just start to blame them for their reaction. Or don't speak my needs because I value the peace, but I'm going to resent you secretly because clearly my needs don't matter to you, or clearly I have to subjugate my own needs in order to have you love me.
Yeah.
So those two pathways are very deeply woven out there in the world. And I teach a third pathway, that is, here's my unmet needs, expressed in a way that leaves you feeling completely open and honoured. Most of us have never learned how to do that.
Hang on, when you say, here's my unmet need, here's leaving you, the person I'm speaking with?
Yes.
Okay.
So you and me, Cam, we're in conflict, and here's me saying my unmet needs, my upset, my disappointment, my frustration, but I teach a way so that I can express that to you in a way that actually leaves you feeling completely valid and absolutely understood.
Okay.
Normally, I'll do it in a way that leaves you feeling like I'm saying you're the villain.
Yeah, and then I get defensive.
Yes, naturally.
And then I close up as
Naturally.
if I must tell you right now.
Yeah.
I'm feeling very open.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you feeling open?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
So that
You've got
pathway.
Is tone part of this too?
Well, I don't
Because
know.
you've got a very calm tone.
Maybe. I don't focus much on tone and body language. I know it's a very important part of communication, but I focus particularly on the pathway of how do I express my unmet needs, my upset, in a way that leaves you feeling honoured.
Could you give an example?
Yeah.
Yeah,
What would
okay.
that sound like?
All right. Well,
Should we create a scenario?
Yes.
All right. What about, all right, James, you and I are living together, right?
Yeah.
And yes, we're in a relationship.
Yeah.
And you know that I like to be touched on
Yeah.
the back of my head and my neck.
Like because it soothes you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Okay,
part of
that's
how you
nice. Yeah, I
experience
like that
connection.
because it soothes me.
Yeah.
All right. But you're not doing it.
Yeah.
And you know that when I'm in trouble, or not in trouble, when I'm struggling with something,
Yeah.
I want some validation that you're doing great, Cam, and a touch on the head, maybe a little scratch, on the back of the neck and stuff like that. But you know that, and you refuse to do it, and I don't know why. That's all I want from you, because otherwise I'd be fine. I could go off for 2 weeks after a head scratch.
Yeah.
What's the problem? That's
Okay.
it.
So
There's that scenario.
and how might you naturally?
Said with so much passion.
Well, I'm acting.
How might you in this imaginary scenario.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
How might you naturally express that to me? Like just naturally, unskillfully. Probably.
Unskillfully.
I thought that was pretty unskilled the way I just did it.
What might you say to me? Why don't you ever?
Why don't you ever? You know that I really like to be touched on the back of my head, and you don't ever do it. You don't seem to give me compliments about if I do something for you, or say thank you, or acknowledge what I actually do for you and for us.
Yeah. Notice how it's building momentum. So beautiful. So the first thing is.
So what do I do?
So the first thing is. There's 1,000 places I could start right now. I'm just deciding how much to kind of frame what conflict actually is before we go there. So could I just take a little left-hand turn into the nature of all conflict and come back to that?
Yep.
Okay. Might get a bit more conflicted because you're stalling.
Well, let's pretend. Let's
put you on the back burner.
Let's pause the reality. Pause reality of the conversation for a moment, just for our listeners.
Back to Cam Podcaster.
Yeah, back to what conflict is and what happens in conflict. So normally we perceive conflict as bad, right? As soon as conflict comes up, it's like, oh no. But actually, conflict is just the uprising of unmet needs. Your unmet needs, my unmet needs, uprising, and our unskillful navigation of those leads to us fighting, right? So the beauty about a moment of unmet needs arising is that there's an opportunity to meet those unmet needs. So conflict is actually an opportunity to go deeper in our relating, to go deeper in understanding.
Okay.
Normally we don't relate to conflict like that. But actually, it's the only way we go deeper.
Yeah.
We don't go deeper lying on a beach together in Spain sipping Negronis.
Yeah.
Like, that's great. Let's have as much of that as possible. But we don't go deeper there. We go deeper by skillfully getting through the moments that really challenged our relationship.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Got it.
So we are naturally unskillful in navigating conflict. And here's why. First of all, the data that we have access to is incomplete. So coming back to that situation, Cam, you're having a very real experience. You're feeling frustrated, disappointed, unloved. Yeah? Mm-hmm. You're having a very real experience. And that's your data. You've got the data of your emotions, the data of your thoughts. You're very much having a real experience, and that occurs to you as the truth. It's just that your data is incomplete because over here in my world, I'm also having an experience at the same time. You don't have access to my experience, just like I don't have access to yours. Does that make sense?
Is it I don't have access because it's yours, right? And you're the only access I have is what you're willing to share with me.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But naturally, in the heat of that moment, you're having an experience. I'm having an experience. So you're feeling unloved, untouched, unsoothed, uncared for, and that leaves you feeling sad, angry, hurt, frustrated, disappointed. And I'm receiving your words because you say things like, why don't you ever touch me? It feels like you don't love me. I've told you this is what I need and you seem so unwilling. So the experience I'm having in response to what you're saying is I'm feeling unappreciated for the love that I give you. I'm feeling attacked. I'm feeling criticized, judged, and misunderstood. So I'm having an experience, you're having an experience. You only have access to yours. I only have access to mine. So because of that, I'm coming to a conclusion about you that's like you're needy, you're critical, you don't seem willing to see my love, you're not appreciative. And you're coming to conclusions about me, which is he's unloving, he doesn't want to do what feels nurturing to me. He must not care. He's defensive. Now he's really defensive. That's more, that means he's selfish. That means he's a whatever, narcissist, control freak, bully, whatever label we want to put on it. It's all the rage now. So we're having two experiences. We've only got access to one, and we're reaching conclusions or analyses. So can you notice how my analysis is false and your analysis is false? Because our analysis is based on limited data. The reality is your experience plus my experience. And anyone on the outside might be able to see that, but in the inside, we can't see that. So conflict is characterized by me reaching analysis about you based on incomplete data and you doing the same. And then you start saying things like, see, you're getting defensive, you're not willing to understand me, you never care, you never listen. And I'm like, hang on a sec, dude, like, all the loving I've been doing, does that matter nothing to you? And we just escalate from there.
And the fact that you duded me as well.
We didn't.
Now I know we're really in trouble.
We
James.
didn't establish the nature of our relationship. You've just become dude.
Yeah.
So analysis divides.
Yep.
That's what analysis actually is. Analysis is distinguishing this from that. All analysis. So in relationship communication, every time I'm in analysis, I create a me versus you.
Yeah, right.
I make you into a such and such and you make me into a such and such. And then from there it escalates and then the behaviour that ensues is further data that, see how much of a such and such you are because now you're doing this and this and this. And it escalates from there. So in reality, we need some way to come back to reality. And most of us in conflict don't exist in reality. Reality is your experience and my experience coexist. Even though they're radically different, they coexist. So the pathway of communication I teach is how to hold your experience and my experience at the same time. And I'll give you an example shortly. The other thing that escalates conflict is that, Cam, you're over there in your very real experience and you're fighting to have your experience seen by me, aren't you? You're like, hello, get over here in my world.
Yep.
Like if you really care about me, get it over here in my world.
Yep.
At the same time, I'm wanting you to get my experience. So I'm like, no, get over here in my world. The more I want you to get in my world, the more I leave you feeling dismissed. And the more you want your experience seen, the more you leave me feeling dismissed. And the analogy I sometimes use, you both acted. It's like two actors on a stage, one spotlight. We both want the spotlight of validation on us. So we have a push-pull about who gets the spotlight. The work I do is widen the diameter of the spotlight. So we both experiences get seen. And that, on the surface level, sounds like wishy-washy, but actually I coach people how to fiercely speak their experience while also fiercely speaking the experience of the other. Once both experiences get validated, something starts to transform. So I'll give you an example.
Yep.
So back in what I call Plan A is the conflict pathway that everyone's got wired in the brain naturally. You say, why don't you ever touch me anymore? I've asked you to and you seem so unwilling. I don't feel very loved. Are you seeing someone else, etc.? And it just escalates from there, right? I say...
By the way, I didn't think you were seeing someone else.
Oops, just dropped it.
Wow, you gave that one up. Okay.
Oh, boy. It's really gone down a different path now.
Over here in my world, in my Plan A natural conflict pathway, I'm like, see how unappreciative you are.
Yep.
You really don't appreciate everything I do for us. I don't think I can exist in this world of unappreciation that I always get from you, and it escalates, right? Plan B is the pathway where both of our experiences get recognised. Not both of our analyses, both of our experiences. So if I'm leading this conversation to create mutual understanding, I will say something like, Cam, when I have not reached out and soothed you that way you really love being soothed, I can understand that you feel super disappointed, maybe uncared for and unloved. And over here, when you express your upset to me the way you naturally do, I can feel really unappreciated, unseen for the loving I do of you, and hurt and defensive. So I'm starting to speak to the reality, which is your experience and my experience.
Yeah. Well, it's like, it feels good that when you acknowledge my experience.
Exactly.
And then after acknowledging my experience, that you share your experience.
Yeah,
so
because that
it
also
educates me.
That also educates you. And because you're a compassionate human, you want to see into my heart. Because in plan A, I was saying, God, you're so unappreciative. That's not sharing my heart. That's sharing my analysis. In plan B, I say, you know what? I actually have started to feel like unappreciated and sad and hurt. And you're like, oh. So you start to feel into me. So that way of talking experience, yours and mine, instead of analysis, yours versus mine, is just a little taste of where we head.
Great.
If we go more skillfully,
Yeah.
if we want to take a next level.
Yeah, but first of all, I know I do, and you are an expert, but Beattie and her husband Bill
Yes.
are not.
Yes.
Right? So
Yes.
this first one is really, I just want to be mindful
Yeah.
of them listening
course.
right now and being able to really take in
Yes.
what you're saying and be
Yes.
able to, I would love them to hear this and maybe put it on repeat
Yes.
and hear it again and
Of
then put it
course.
straight into action.
Of course.
Yeah.
So should we
Keep
look
going.
at the next level down
Please.
to put it into action?
Yeah.
There's two components of experience that are going to really work for us to focus on. First of all, and there's two components for each of us. First of all, what you're hoping for through, the moment and through your communication of the moment, what you're hoping for.
Is that as per what I want?
Yeah, what
from
you're
this?
wanting.
Yeah.
Yeah, your intention, your yearning, your longing. And the second aspect of your component that really needs to be seen is your upset, your pain. So how it felt to you. So I call them yearning and pain, but you could call them intention and upset, whatever works for you. Same two components need to be seen in me. So we've actually got 4 truths. And once we illuminate the 4 truths, something quite magical happens. So what are you hoping for in that moment?
I'm hoping for us to feel
Connect.
like we're on that beach in Mallorca, having, like we're together and we're enjoying ourselves. I'm hoping for some lightness.
Yeah, you want lightness,
understanding.
You want togetherness, you want understanding,
Yeah.
you want to feel soothed in the way that you love feeling soothed, like touched and reassured
Yeah.
and cared for.
Correct.
And in expressing your pain to me, you're wanting me to recognise your pain so we can tend to your pain. So you're actually wanting ease and to be pain-free.
Sounds good to me.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
And then the other aspect of your experience is the pain, the upset that it causes you. So what's it like for you when I don't stroke you on the back of the neck like you keep asking me to?
Yeah, thanks. It feels, I feel rejected,
Yeah.
and unlistened to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And almost like as if I'm being defiant, like I don't want to give you that love. Does it seem to you a bit
There
like
seems a bit of that. It's like
got
you're
it.
doing it on purpose
Got
to
it.
piss me off.
And does that
I
leave you-
don't understand why.
Does that leave you feeling hurt?
Hurt and lonely.
Yes. Got it. Beautiful.
Okay.
So my job, if I'm leading this conversation, and this work doesn't require both of us to do it, it only requires one party.
Oh, that's good.
Thank goodness, because conflict is characterised by not both of us being willing.
Yeah.
So as long as one person is willing, this is how it happens. If I want to lead that conversation, I need to bring my loving awareness to both of those two components in you. So even if you're screaming at me down the hallway, you bloody don't love me, you never want to, I've asked you, you don't care, right? My job is to go, okay, behind what he's saying, what are those two components? What's he longing for and what's he suffering with? And to bring them into my communication. So I can say to you, Cam, I love how connected you want us to be. And I love the extent to which you want to be soothed by me. And I love the extent to which you're helping me try to understand your pain, because that means we are able to tend to your pain together. That means we can find a pain-free place. I love those things. And the way you're going about trying to be soothed and trying to express your upset actually leaves me feeling a bit criticised, a bit blamed, and a bit unappreciated. I see what you're hoping for, and it's beautiful, and look at the upset that I've got that you don't want for me. Does that make sense? So I'm
Yeah.
holding your yearning and my pain in equal measure.
Yeah, okay.
The way you're going about all those beautiful things is leaving me feeling an upset that you never wanted for me. That's a key ingredient, isn't it? The upset you never wanted for me.
Yeah.
Because it's natural for us to go, because I feel hurt and unappreciated, you must be hurtful and unappreciative. But actually the truth is it's just the way you're going about expressing your needs.
Yeah.
So does that making some sense?
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And would you also add to that, I mean, I guess this is a further down the line, but would you also add, and I want the same thing. I also want to feel close to you. So how do we both have our needs?
Well, then
met?
let's turn to the other two quadrants, to the other two parts. So I've just held your yearning and my pain in equal measure.
Yeah.
Right? Not put one ahead of the other.
That's so good.
Yep.
So I've said, I see what you're hoping for, and I've actually been able to articulate what I think you might have been hoping for and validate it and hold it as important for us. And at the same time, in the other hand, we've got two hands, how convenient. I will hold the upset that it brings me, how you've gone about expressing it. You're yearning, my pain. So let's work with the other two, which is my yearning and your pain. So I would recognise from either from what you've shared with me, or I start to feel into your experience and go, God, look how upset, look how hurt, look how dejected, look how rejected, look how angry and sad and lonely Cam must be feeling to be saying those things to me.
Okay.
So we're going underneath your behaviour into the experience that you're having. And so I can say, I see the extent to which you must feel like alone and lonely, as if you are unloved by me. I can see how sad that might be leaving you feeling, and how completely unappreciated for the invitations that you've made to me about how to love you. Am I getting in the right ballpark?
Yep.
Cool. At the same time, I can then say, I never wanted that upset for you. I strive to love you in the ways that feel more comfortable to me, such as this house, such as organising the holiday that we've got next month. I'm wanting to love you in a way that doesn't feel as uncomfortable as physical touch can feel for me. And I understand that for you, that feels like I'm not willing to love you the way you want to be loved. So I'm trying to hold your upset and my valid yearning, longing, intention in equal measure. Is that starting to make some sense?
That's so good. I love that.
Yeah, it does.
Now, it takes some uncovering.
Yes.
Because I have to, for me to lead that conversation, I have to see and hear your behaviour and your words, and I have to translate them into, so this is for all your listeners, behind what that person in your life is doing that's so upsetting to you, what are they hoping for? Like, what's their tender heart wanting to feel through doing and saying what they're doing? And what suffering are they in such that they might be behaving or speaking that way?
Right.
Once you can start to articulate to that person those two components of their experience, they go, and their behaviour will quieten down. Because their behaviour is just an effort to express their yearning and pain.
And that takes some doing for that one person to, I
really
feel like,
does.
to be centered enough to be able to
It really
listen
does.
and hear and hold those two perspectives as
It
well.
really
Because
does.
if they're triggered, it's just
and
conflict,
especially-
right?
And-
And some
sorry.
people get into that, why is it always me that comes to, try to fix things? Why is it always, that you hear that a lot where it's like, but he's not going to change or she's not going to change, or so it's getting past all of those roadblocks as well, which is tricky.
Yes.
Yeah.
I call that sense of willingness, like I'm willing to be the one.
Yeah.
I'm willing to be the one in this moment to validate your experience and my experience, even if you can't. That's responsibility, which is distinct from blame.
Yes. Yes.
Responsibility is, I think I'm willing to, be the one to shift things for us.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful.
I would imagine that it's hard as well. We do sort of this.
Mm-hmm.
Though to hold them in equal measure,
Yes.
that's
Yes.
tough because
Yes.
you could, I'm acknowledging your pain and all that sort of stuff, and then here's how I'm feeling.
Yes.
And then it would be really easy to go, I acknowledge your pain and I'm feeling like you are such a dickhead because, the but. And
Yes.
you didn't say but before you went and I was like, I thank goodness you didn't say but.
Yeah.
The big eraser of everything that comes before it.
You're pointing to a really important point. The word "and" enables us to hold things in equal measure. The word "but" prevents us from. I just did a post on this on Instagram this morning.
Did you?
I hear you, but
Yes.
is actually a secret way of invalidating you. It's saying, I'm going to pretend to be listening, and then I'm going to make what I say next slightly more important than what you've just said.
Correct.
So the word "but" is actually woven in our dialogue culturally very deeply. You'll start to hear it everywhere now.
Yeah. Well, you came up with that idea that the but is the big eraser because it erases everything that was said beforehand.
Yes, exactly it does. while pretending that we've just validated someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
And going, I've been listening to you. So why are you so upset?
Yeah.
I hear you, but
Yes.
is actually a
I agree
sneaky
with
way
you,
of dismissal.
but I just think it's like,
Hey,
Yeah.
mate, how do you go in? Do you find it easier to be dealing with, like you said, with other people because you can see it's a lot easier to see other people than in your own relationship? Then is that
Naturally.
yeah?
I mean,
Why is that it's so difficult for us in relationship to not be able to see the weeds, through the trees?
Well,
Or
if I
that's all we
sit-
see, maybe that's all we focus on is the weeds through the trees rather than seeing the actual trees.
I sat in a cafe the other day before the 2-day workshop I just ran, having breakfast before the workshop, and there were 3 tables around me, and I was eavesdropping on each of the conversations. And now, because I've been doing
Hey,
this
you're not
work,
the only one, mate.
no, but because I've been doing this work for so long, what I hear is yearning, pain, yearning, pain, yearning, pain. Everything that everyone ever says, I now translate into what they're longing for and what they're suffering with.
right.
And it's a very powerful tool because then you just hear the goodness in someone's heart and where they feel unloved.
Yeah.
And so actually all people on the planet show up as just longing and suffering. That's why my book will be called How to Fall in Love with Humanity. So that's what I'm doing naturally, outwardly all the time, just because I've trained in it all day, every day. When it comes to my relationships, what stops me from feeling into their yearning and pain and my yearning and pain is the fact that my mind has analysis ready before my heart's even taken a beat. My mind has already served up my analysis. This is the thing. This is why I call it conscious communication, because until we realize the mind unconsciously generates an analysis about the situation, about them, before we've even blinked, based on the experience we're having.
Is that like a protection
Yes,
mechanism?
exactly.
So we can label something and you go, I know what that is.
Yes, because then we can move away from the upset because we've made an analysis that gives us an action to take to move away. It's the sympathetic nervous system being expressed in thought and language. So yes, it's a survival mechanism. Such a beautiful survival mechanism, and yet it fires up when someone puts the plate the wrong way around in the dishwasher.
Yeah.
And then we're in opposition to each other when it's not life or death.
Yeah.
It's very super helpful when the bus is coming at us,
Yeah.
in the middle of Pitt Street.
Yeah.
But it's very damaging the way we go into opposition straight away. So yes, in any of the people that I love in my life will listen to this and go, oh, I'm glad Fish acknowledges that he struggles sometimes to create mutual understanding. Instead, me, like everyone, I just get defensive because I go, hang on a sec, look at what I was hoping for. Look at how wonderful it is. And I want to talk about that and leave them feeling dismissed in their upset. Or I want to talk about my upset, look at how it felt, what you did, and leave them feeling dismissed for what they'd actually hoped for.
Right.
So that's the natural mechanism of conflict. We want everyone to see our good intention and that leaves them feeling dismissed in their pain. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Does now.
So I want to say to you, Cam, back to our scenario, I want to say to you, hey, I've been loving you in so many different ways.
Right.
And as I do that, you naturally feel like I'm not willing to tend to your upset, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
And if I want to talk to you about how it is for me, what you've just said, I might say, I feel so unappreciative. You're so unappreciative.
Yeah.
It just makes me so angry. And you'll feel like what you were hoping for, which is love and connection and to feel adored by me, just got dismissed as well.
Yeah. You were further away from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So once we recognise that the natural plan A mechanism is to unconsciously dismiss each other, just let that sit for a moment. Since the dawn of time, every human being all over the planet was having an experience and another person was having an experience. Both minds came up with an analysis. The analysis were different, of course, and then we started fighting about it. That's all conflict everywhere since the dawn of time. What we didn't realise is that there's data over there in their world that we have to get curious about that is beyond our view. It's like, you go out into the backyard and you hear this weird sound coming from your neighbour's house and you sit there like, what is that? But it's only when you peer over the fence, you're like, that makes sense. That's the extent to which other people's experience is hidden from view.
Oh gosh, we are out of time for today.
Yeah, but we've still got to get to the listener questions.
Yeah.
So let's put a pin in this now and reconvene next week with James Gill.